My name is Clara, and I'm 33 years old. I used to think I knew everything about love. My husband, Ethan, who is 38, was my entire world. He was the definition of kindness, the gentlest soul I had ever known. Our life together was a tapestry of simple joys and quiet happiness, but a single accident unraveled it all. When he woke up in that sterile hospital room, the man I loved was gone. He looked right through me, his eyes filled with a terrifying emptiness, and asked, "Who are you?" In that single, shattering moment, my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I knew then that my journey was not just about his recovery, but about making him fall in love with me all over again. This is my story. This is the story of the stranger I married. Our story began a decade ago in the cozy corner of a bustling coffee shop. I was lost in a book when I met Ethan. He was sitting at the adjacent table, and with a sudden jolt, he spilled his latte. A wave of hot coffee washed over my favorite boots. He was mortified, his apologies tumbling out of his mouth. I simply laughed. He insisted on buying me a new coffee, and that was the beginning. We talked for what felt like minutes but were actually hours. It was an effortless click, a conversation that flowed like a river, as if our souls had known each other for a lifetime. He made me laugh with a depth I hadn't felt before, and I felt utterly safe with him. From that day on, we were inseparable. He was a writer crafting worlds from the quiet of our home, while I was a teacher, shaping young minds at a local primary school. Our lives were simple but rich with love. I can still feel the tremor in his hands on the day he proposed. We were in our favorite park, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. "Clara," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I want to spend every single day of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy streamed down my face as I said, "Yes, of course, yes." Our wedding was an intimate affair, surrounded only by our closest family and friends. It remains the happiest day of my life. As I looked at Ethan, my husband, I was filled with a profound sense of certainty. I was the luckiest woman in the world. For 5 beautiful years, we weren't just married, we were each other's best friend. I believed our love was an unbreakable fortress that nothing could ever tear us apart. But I was wrong. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning. I left for school, and Ethan was at home working on his latest novel. In the afternoon, my phone rang, displaying an unknown number. I answered, and a grim official voice asked, "Are you Clara, the wife of Ethan?" My heart immediately began to hammer against my ribs. "Yes, I am. Is everything okay?" The voice replied with words that would change my life forever. "Your husband has been in an accident. He is at City General Hospital. You need to come right away." The world tilted on its axis. The air in my lungs vanished. An accident. Ethan, it was impossible. He was at home. He was safe. I dropped the phone, and my colleague saw the color drain from my face. "Clara, what's wrong?" she asked with alarm. I was mute, unable to form words, just pointing at the phone on the floor. She picked it up, spoke briefly, and her expression softened with pity. "I'll drive you," she said, her voice a lifeline. The drive was a blur of terrible, spiraling thoughts. "Please be okay, Ethan. Please be okay." I chanted it like a mantra. At the hospital, I ran inside, my voice frantic as I asked for my husband. A nurse led me to a small, cold waiting room, explaining that a doctor would be with me shortly. The waiting was torture. Every tick of the clock was a drumbeat of dread. My hands were ice cold, my body shaking uncontrollably. I pictured his smile, his infectious laugh. I could not lose him. I simply could not. Finally, a doctor entered. "Clara," he said gently, "your husband was struck by a car while crossing the street." The tears I had been holding back began to fall. "He has a severe head injury. We performed surgery, which was successful. He is stable now. He is alive." That one word, alive, was the only thing I heard. It was a rope thrown into a dark abyss. "He's alive. Can I see him?" I pleaded. The doctor nodded. "Yes, but there's something you need to know. Due to the nature of the head injury, we don't know what to expect when he wakes. He might suffer from memory loss. We have to wait and see." Memory loss. The words didn't truly register. I just needed to see him. The nurse led me to his room. His head was wrapped in white bandages, and he was surrounded by a symphony of beeping machines. I gently took his hand. "Ethan, it's me, it's Clara, I'm here, please wake up." For 3 days, I kept a vigil at his bedside. I didn't go home. I didn't sleep. I just watched him, praying for him to open his eyes. On the 3rd day, his fingers twitched in my hand. "He's waking up," I called out to the nurse. The doctor rushed in. Ethan's eyes fluttered open slowly. He looked at the doctor, then the nurse, and then his gaze fell on me. I managed a watery smile. "Ethan, you're awake." He stared at me, his brow furrowed in confusion. He tried to speak, his voice a weak, raspy whisper. "Who are you?" My heart didn't just break, it stopped. "What? Ethan, it's me, it's Clara, your wife." He just stared, no flicker of recognition in his eyes. He turned to the doctor and said, "I don't know her." The doctor gently asked if we could speak outside. I felt paralyzed, staring at the man who had promised to love me forever, who was now looking at me as if I were a complete stranger. The doctor explained the diagnosis: retrograde amnesia. The trauma had damaged the part of his brain responsible for personal memories, for emotional connections. He explained that Ethan remembered general knowledge, his name, what a car was, but he had no memory of me, of our marriage, of our life together. For him, the last 10 years had simply vanished. Gone. An entire decade of our love, our first meeting, our dates, our wedding, our home, all erased. The doctor offered a sliver of hope, saying the memories might return in weeks, months, or years. Or they might never come back at all. I went back into the room, forcing a strength I didn't feel. I smiled. "It's okay, Ethan. You had an accident. Your memory is a little jumbled, but you're safe. I'm here to help you." He looked at me with pure fear in his eyes. He was scared. To him, I was a stranger claiming to be the most intimate person in his life. The following weeks were the most difficult I have ever endured. While Ethan recovered in the hospital, I visited daily, bringing our wedding album, telling him stories of our life. He would listen politely, his face a blank canvas. It was like he was watching a film about someone else's life, a man who looked like him but felt like a stranger. When he was discharged, the doctor suggested that returning home might trigger his memory. But our home was no longer familiar to him. It was my home, not his. The day he came back was surreal. He looked at our small white house and asked, "This is our house." "Yes," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Welcome home." He walked inside tentatively, his eyes scanning everything as if it were a museum. He looked at the photos on our walls, the life we had built, with the detachment of an observer. That night, I made his favorite meal, roast chicken. He ate in silence. "Is it good?" I asked, desperate for a connection. He nodded. "Yes, it is very good, thank you. Just thank you." the polite words of a guest, not my husband. I excused myself to the bedroom and wept silently. We slept in the same bed, yet a vast, empty ocean separated us. I was afraid to touch him, afraid to frighten him further. I was sleeping next to a stranger who wore my husband's face. I missed him with an ache so profound it felt physical. He was right there, but he was gone. I refused to give up. I had to try. If he couldn't remember, I would make him fall in love with me again. I had to start from the very beginning, so I tried to recreate our first date. "Ethan, would you like to go to a coffee shop?" I asked one afternoon. "I don't know, Clara, it all feels so strange," he confessed. "Please," I urged. "Let's just go for a coffee as friends." He eventually agreed. We went to the same coffee shop and sat at a similar table. I recounted the story of how he had spilled coffee on me. He managed a small smile. "I was clumsy, huh?" he said. "Yes," I replied, "but very charming." I took him to the park where he had proposed. I told him our stories, but he remained quiet, a passive listener. I never knew what he was thinking. Was anything stirring within him? Was he feeling anything at all? Our friends and family tried to help. His mother hugged him, crying, "Oh, Ethan, my son," but he didn't remember her. Our friends told old jokes, trying to make him laugh. He would smile politely, but he was always the outsider, listening to tales of a man he didn't know. One evening, my best friend, Sophie, came over. "I don't know what to do, Sophie," I confessed, my voice breaking. "I feel like I'm losing him more every day. He's kind, but he's not my Ethan. He's a stranger." Sophie looked at me thoughtfully and said something that changed everything. "Maybe you're trying too hard to bring the old Ethan back. Maybe you need to let him get to know you, the woman you are now, and you need to get to know the new him." Sophie was right. I was so fixated on the past, trying to force him to remember a life that, for him, no longer existed. I needed to build something new. The next day, I changed my approach. I stopped talking about our past. Instead, I talked about my day at school. And for the first time, he asked questions. "What grade do you teach?" He was showing interest in me, Clara, the woman living with him now. We started with small conversations about the weather, the news, a movie we watched. It was often stilted and painful, but it was a beginning. He began to spend more time with me, sitting in the kitchen while I cooked, sometimes even offering to help. One afternoon, I came home from a particularly difficult day at school, feeling utterly exhausted. I collapsed onto the sofa and closed my eyes. When I opened them, Ethan was standing in front of me, holding a cup of coffee. "You look tired," he said softly. "I made you coffee." Tears instantly welled in my eyes. "Is it bad?" he asked, misinterpreting my reaction. I shook my head, unable to speak for a moment. "No," I finally managed. "It's perfect." He smiled. It was the genuine, warm smile I had missed so much. In that single, simple gesture, I knew a part of him was still in there. And maybe, just maybe, he was starting to love me again. Our 6th wedding anniversary arrived, and I woke up with a heavy heart. He didn't know the significance of the day, and I didn't say anything, but a cloud of sadness followed me. That evening, he found me in our bedroom, crying as I clutched our wedding album. He sat beside me on the bed, his own eyes filled with a deep, sorrowful pain. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I can't remember this. I'm sorry I'm not him." He pointed to a picture of us on our wedding day. "I'm living in his house, sleeping in his bed with his wife. But I'm not him. Clara, maybe you should be free. You should find someone who can love you the way you deserve. I'm not that man, I'm just a ghost." He was letting me go. But as I looked at him, at this man who was willing to sacrifice his own comfort for my happiness, I had a revelation. I was falling in love with this new Ethan. "Listen to me, Ethan," I said, taking his hand. "I loved that man in the pictures with all my heart, but I'm also starting to love the man sitting in front of me right now. I don't want to be free from you. I want to be with you." Tears streamed down his face as he looked at me. That night was a turning point. We decided to stop trying to recover the past and start building a future. We went on real dates. We walked in the park, talking for hours, getting to know each other from scratch. One evening, as we sat by the lake, Ethan turned to me and said, "Clara, I think I'm falling in love with you." I cried tears of pure happiness. "I'm falling in love with you too, Ethan," I replied. Life wasn't a fairy tale. He still had difficult days, and his memory of our past never fully returned. But a year after the accident on our anniversary, he took me back to the park, to the exact spot where he had first proposed. He took my hand. "Clara, I know I can't remember the first time I did this. I can't remember the promise I made to you then, but I want to make a new one." He got down on one knee and pulled out a small box. Inside was a beautiful, delicate ring. "Clara," he said, his voice steady and full of love, "you stayed with me when I was a complete stranger. You taught me how to live again, and you taught me how to love again. I love you more than words can ever say. Will you marry me? Again?" "Yes," I sobbed, laughing through my tears. We were standing in the same place, but we were two different people, bound by a love that was forged not in shared memories, but in shared struggle and a conscious choice to love each other every day. Sometimes, life takes away the things we believe we cannot live without. It's terrifying and painful, but it's in losing everything that you discover what truly matters. You find the strength to build a new beginning. Never give up on love, and most importantly, never give up on the person you can become.